Hi, my name is Lauren Reynolds, and this is the Central Connecticut State University Wind Ensemble. Today we're going to discuss and demonstrate a few rehearsal techniques that are aimed to foster ensemble independence. In my work with both high school and college ensembles, I found the most reliable method for improving our rehearsal efficiency is to put more of the responsibility onto the players. So using rehearsal strategies that put the onus on them helps them make more rapid and sustainable progress in the rehearsal. The more we teach our players to be responsible for their own musicianship, the better prepared they are for any future piece of literature that they might encounter, and thus our rehearsals become much more efficient. You'll see that these techniques are not magic strategies, but rather ways to keep us as conductors thinking about ensemble independence as a top priority. So let's get started. The first technique we're going to demonstrate is a somewhat subtle and mostly psychological technique, and that's using positive person-first language to address ensemble issues. The key to this is positive language. Here's an example. Let's imagine that the tempo is dragging in rehearsal. I'm sure this is an issue that none of us has ever faced. Our instinct is to tell the ensemble, you're dragging, or worse, to tell a particular section, tubas, you're dragging. But a subtle change in how we address this issue is going to put positive responsibility on the shoulders of the players. So rather than telling the players they're dragging the tempo, we want to invite them to take charge of the tempo. So we're going to try that again. Tuba, trombone 3, bari sax. Can you guys lead us in the tempo there, especially those 4 bars leading into 15? You guys are in charge. See if you can lead the tempo there. Let's try it again at 14. Or we can try it another way. Let's direct their listening to somewhere else in the ensemble. So horns, you have the motor there. And the rest of us, we need to listen to that motor. And horns, you drive the bus there. You're the motor. We're going to listen to you. Let's try it again. All of us together at 14. Again, what's important is that we're giving the responsibility to the players in the ensemble and inviting them to be active participants in finding a solution to their ensemble issues. This technique can be applied to any ensemble issue, not just tempo. Again, what's important is the type of language that we use to address the ensemble issues. The next technique we're going to demonstrate is a related technique I think many of us use, but maybe we don't use it often enough, and that's conduct less. This is most helpful when we're dealing with issues of alignment and tempo control. Remember, tempo is ultimately the responsibility of our players, and thus, the more we conduct, the less responsibility that the players have over the tempo and alignment. The more we get out of their way, the more they're forced to listen to each other. Let's take a listen to a passage that has some inherent alignment issues. And now we'll simply play the same passage without a conductor and see what happens. Chances are it won't fix itself magically the first time. In fact, often the issues get worse the first time. However, once the players have a chance to really listen to each other, then they'll be able to successfully sort it out given another opportunity or two. As soon as the visual is removed, students are forced to rely only on their ears to correct the alignment. What happens over time is the players' ears become more of their primary tool for them and less of a tool to use in case of emergency. And again, this is one of the keys to great rehearsal technique, creating positive habits in the players so that our time is more efficient. The next technique will help players retain what they rehearse so we can continue moving forward and avoid repeating rehearsal items. When players make a noticeable change in any facet of musicianship, be it style, dynamics, character, tone, whatever, Immediately have them recreate both sounds, the desired sound and the undesired sound, so they can feel and remember the difference. Simply moving on usually results in some attrition by the time the next rehearsal rolls around, or even the next time we play that passage in this rehearsal. So let's take a passage in this highly stylized music. I'll ask the players to make some style adjustments. So as you play this passage, can you separate between any quarter notes that you have and any dotted notes and whatever follows? So there's got to be a marcato style to this, da, di, da, 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 di, da, da, and all the notes need to have some detachment, a little bit of zip to the beginning. Let's try it once more. Now that they've made some great changes, I'll immediately ask them to recreate both styles, desirable and undesirable, to make sure that they can feel the difference. So that was much better. Do that same thing again, more detachment between the dotted notes and what follows. Try it again, same way. Excellent. Now go back and do it the way you did it a minute ago, where the notes were too connected and there was no space between the notes. Try that. That's it. Now that they've felt the direct contrast in their own playing, they are much more likely to retain this change for future rehearsals, and better yet, much more likely to apply these style changes to other repertoire down the road. Issues of balance are some of the most recurring issues I think we all encounter in our ensembles. We can help our players become more independent if we consistently use the strategy of directing their listening, rather than adjusting dynamics like knobs on a stereo receiver. As we direct their listening, it's always a good idea to refer to the parts by their musical role, rather than simply who plays them. Here's an example of what I mean. So we're going to play it again. This time, can you bring out the counter melody, any of the inner moving lines that we hear? Try it again. Now this is a tried and true method for developing ensemble independence. However, sometimes the players simply can't hear what parts we're asking them to listen to, despite our best efforts. I find this to be most common in texturally dense tutti passages. Situations like this, we can eliminate the density factor by eliminating any sustaining sound and asking the players to simply play the beginnings of notes. Some people refer to this as bopping the parts. This allows players to hear through the texture so they can adjust their own balance on their own, without simply being told to play louder or softer on this beat or that beat. So now I want you to play the same passage, but you're going to bop the notes. So you're going to play just the beginnings, no sustain at all. Excellent. How many of you heard something you didn't hear previously, a moving note you didn't hear before? All right, good. So let's try it again and make sure that those notes can be heard. So play as written now. What we've done is we've allowed the players to identify the complexities of the score without going beat by beat and spending precious rehearsal time dissecting the score for them. Now the players can make adjustments on their own with musical understanding. The last item we're going to demonstrate is a technique that helps players become more independent by heightening their sense of artistry. Seems fairly common that less experienced players tend to give far less attention to the ends of their notes than they do to the beginnings of their notes. As a result, we find ourselves spending a lot of rehearsal time reminding our players not to cut off their air or chop off their ending sounds. Rather than framing it this way, if we encourage players to focus on how they enter the silence, or in some cases, how the end of their note might assist another player in beginning their note. Players instantly take ownership over their ends of notes and perform with a much higher level of artistry. And isn't that what we're ultimately striving for? The note can sound somewhat abrupt if the players aren't considering the end of their sound. If I simply turn the attention to this and ask them to think about it differently, we can hear really drastic changes in their sound. So we're going to play it again. This time, I want you to think of the end of your note as entering the silence. So you're going to release your sound out and up into the air as though you were passing the note to someone else who plays. You're just passing it into silence. Let's try it again. What a difference in your sound. That's great. So in summary, the more we can do to promote independence in our players, the more efficient our rehearsals are going to be, and the quicker the musical growth in the ensemble will be. If we keep this in mind at all times, our players will feel valued, they'll feel productive, and they'll feel responsible for the progress of the ensemble. Thanks for spending this time with us. Here's to great music making.